Personally, I like to think a lot about this as if I'm a consumer. And so personally, I think one of the biggest things you can do for yourself is investing in really good design. A lot of people tend to just pull kind of like off the shelf design, which definitely to some degree it can work. But the problem is with modern consumerism, trust is very much articulated through design and through cleanliness and minimalism.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Don't forget that I want to send you the Power 9 if you have not gotten it yet. If you have, then you know how powerful it is. And all you have to do is go over to Instagram and message me the word power. Don't message me anything else, only the word power. No exclamation points, no emojis, just the word power, and I want to send it to you. And it is the thing that Chris and I have been doing for over a decade, and really believe that that was the start of the way of thinking that can create the future that you want, that can attract what you want, that can make sure that you are keeping in the forefront of your mind all of your goals. So you can use it as a journal prompt as well, but just send me the word power on Instagram messages and I'm going to send you our Power 9. You can do it in less than 2 minutes a day. I'm telling you, you have 2 minutes to change your life. You do. You can do this. All right. So today is one of my, I would say one of those mentors who you're like, you're my online mentor and you don't know it. Like, so when I got on with Nik, which I'd also done a Mentor Pass coaching session. If you don't know what that is, you can actually go on to Mentor Pass and see if there's anyone on there, maybe some of your favorite online mentors, some of your favorite business people who you can book an hour of their time and they just go on there and like give you the most incredible advice. So I got to do this with Nik before this podcast as well, which really, really rocked my world. But he is one of my mentors for direct to consumer marketing. And I really binge his podcast because I have this incredible hydration product coming out that I cannot wait. And it's got so many more details than that, but he's been helping me in answering a lot of questions on what that should look like to launch a consumer product. So if you're ever thinking of doing that, this podcast is going to be great, but he's also just a person who knows how to sell online. So if you love selling online, if you want to learn more about selling online, you're going to love this podcast. So he's widely known as the D2C guy. He's a Forbes 30 under 30 member, Adweek's Young and Influential, and a resource that brands and investors turn to for growth. So he's the active CEO of Sharma Brands, which is insane and amazing. And also HOOX, where clients include Feastables, Chamberlain Coffee, Everlane, Jim Beam, Poo Pourri, and more. We all know Poo Pourri. Come on. All right. And before entering the e-commerce world, Nik worked on social media strategies for A-list celebrities, including Pitbull, Priyanka Chopra, hopefully I got that name right, and Magic, to natively increase distribution and increase fan interaction. So he's definitely got a wide array of things that he has done, which brings in so much perspective and wisdom. And I hope that you enjoy this podcast as much as I did. So let's get started. Nik, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, I'm excited to be here.
Normally, I'm listening to you on your podcast, and you don't talk back to me when I ask you questions. So
well, I'm here now.
This is going to be super cool. And also, I love listening to you guys because you're hilarious and you're so real. Like I was just listening the other day, and I'm like, this is the shit I want to be able to say, but they just say it. So
yeah, sometimes we run a little too close to the sun, but hopefully it's all for the best.
It's for the best. At least it's for me. So, yeah. Okay, I'm so excited that you're here. I was just telling you before you got on, you're one of those people where I'm like, you actually make it so hard for me because there are so many directions to go in. And that's just what I want to warn people on before this podcast is this man and his wisdom can help you in so many different ways that this is just going to be the opening up of his world, the Nik Sharma world to your world, and just know that there are a million ways that he's going to be able to help you throughout the process. So you're going to need to go dig deeper. You're going to need to go subscribe to the podcast and do all of those things because this is just going to be like a buffet, like a little bit of a sampling of everything today.
I love it.
Let's first dive into, you have so many companies and things going on. Can you just tell me what those things are?
Yeah, there's definitely a handful. So we have 3 service businesses that work primarily to e-commerce businesses that do usually over 25 or 30 million in revenue. That's kind of our sweet spot. We have one business called Sharma Brands. This is where we do a ton of launches for brands. So companies like Jolie, the Showerhead, or Feastables, or Spritz Society, these companies come to us, we help them launch. We also do a ton of scaling. So companies like a Everlane or a Crocs or Love Wellness, they'll also come to us and we really help them across scaling e-commerce and their direct consumer channel. We have another company called 1180, which I think by the time this drops will be rebranded to Character. And essentially what we do is customer acquisition, again, for brands that are in that 50 million plus range. Customer acquisition focused on secondary presence. So it's this idea of leveraging third-party internet publishers, content creators, influencers, and other platforms with our targeting and media buying and messaging and learnings. So you put kind of first-party info and third-party social proof together, and that's how we call it secondary presence. And then the third company is called HOOX. That's our most recent one. That's where we pretty much do landing pages as a service. And so companies come to us and they might be launching on TV, they might be launching on TikTok, they might be just launching into Target or Walmart, or they just want to make their emails, for example, more efficient. And so they'll come to us, we'll help them build landing pages fully focused on driving conversion and AOV, and we can pretty much turn around landing pages pretty quickly. And then outside of that, I've got the newsletter. There's this newsletter I write, the podcast you mentioned. All the free time outside of that, I'm usually just chilling, maybe watching some basketball, sleeping, or working out.
Who's your team?
I would say Warriors, but I always get hate for saying the Warriors because they're so good. But I lived in the Bay for 5 years, and I think like 3 or 4 of those 5, they kept winning. So I became a Warriors fan. Before that, I was a Lakers fan. It's hard to be a fan of the Knicks. I'm in New York now. It's really hard to be a Knicks fan.
Oh, man. Well, my husband was into the Packers, and I became a Packer fan when they were doing really well. And then I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's not fun being a fan after a while.
Not much fun.
It's not what I signed up for.
We're still there, but I totally know what you mean. Okay, that is an overwhelming and amazing amount of things that you have going on. I think first and foremost, I just want to know how your brain even started to say, I'm ready for this next thing, because that is next level leadership that you have to be in order to run all of those things and to have them be as successful as they are. So did you always know that you were able or capable of handling so many things at once, or how did that layering come?
It was definitely not planned. Sharma Brands was the first company that started, and that wasn't even planned. That was me getting opportunities to consult with other brands and kind of help them in different places where I had experience. And then, COVID happened, and all of a sudden everybody was looking for support or help around e-commerce, direct to consumer, replacing POs that were being sold at Target, Walmart, Costco that were now pulled, and, their projected $300 million of revenue is now gone. And so we just ended up getting a ton of inbound, which kind of forced me to say, okay, well, I could keep doing these little consulting things, or I could build a team and we could take this opportunity. So that's what I ended up doing. It was very stressful to do at the time. That was the first time I've done that, put people on my payroll. I'm now responsible for somebody's rent payment, for food on their plate, for food on their kids' plates, their spouse's plate. And so, I wish I had actually hired a business coach back then, or somebody who I could pay to just shill my problems, things that are going through my mind. There's so many nights where I would just look at the, oh man, this client's they didn't pay net 14. They're supposed to pay net 14. Payroll's in 2 days. I don't have the delta in between, but eventually it all works out. So Sharma Brands was even started as an accident. Then with 1180, that company, one of my best friends for years now, actually, he was working at a direct-to-consumer brand and basically said, I'm working insanely hard right now. I'm spending so many hours working. If I'm going to work this hard, I'd rather do it for something where I'm building my own equity, my own, my time should equate to equity. It shouldn't just equate to a standard check every month. So we had basically this framework of secondary presence. Him and I actually started running it together 6 years ago. And it was very successful. It always has been successful. And so we decided, let's build a company around this and see if we can just go get 10 brands to pay us to do this. And the idea was, it's going to take as much work to get 10 terrible brands as it will to get 10 really amazing brands. So let's just go get 10 really amazing brands. And that's it. That to us is success. And so we had this goal of 10 brands. We started with 2. kind of as like a beta test. You could call it more, it was more of like a side hustle at that point, just seeing if this thing worked. It did work. And then we decided, okay, he's going to make the leap. He's going to go full time. Then that sort of started and then just kept going. And then the third one, which is HOOX, very similar thing. Landing pages is something that we build for clients at Sharma Brands all the time. It's usually one of the first things that we do when a new brand wants to work with us. And it's honestly one of the fastest ways to make any sort of traffic or ad spend work way harder for you. And so we were getting so much inbound from different companies saying, I'm launching in Target, I'm launching on TikTok, we're launching into a new category. We don't really know how to explain it, or our site is not configured to be able to explain the depth of the product that we need to explain. Can you help us build a landing page? And at this point, I was also able to leverage the newsletter audience. And so I thought, okay, we're getting so much inbound. Maybe there's an opportunity here. So I put up a Google form and said, fill this out. If you would pay $5,000 for a landing page, we'll do the strategy, the research. We'll have copywriters, designers, UX designers, UI designers, developers. We'll give you the file back. So you as the founder can pay for one page, duplicate it 10 or 15 or 20 times, change the copy on your own. But all the hard part is done. And, we had 200 or 300 people sign up overnight. And I said, okay, we should launch this thing. And again, over there, it was not planned. So it was like, we said, okay, we'll launch. It's me, it's one other guy. We launch it together. And, then it's like, we have all these problems. We've basically been like sprinting uphill is kind of how I describe it, with rocks just falling as we're sprinting up. Like, too many clients coming on at one point. We don't have the supply. Just random things that come up as you kind of build a service business. A lot of it too, it's all bootstrapped. So it's very much chicken and the egg. Do you hire a lot up front, or do you wait for the demand, but then you wait for the demand and now you have upset clients and no one to fulfill? And so it's been a very interesting balance. Every company I try to learn something when starting, because 1180 was a much easier start than Sharma Brands. HOOX was a very easy start compared to 1180 and Sharma Brands. And I think the thing I learned with HOOX was that, basically around making sure you have the resources to not end up with upset clients.
Okay. What would you go back and say to yourself from the beginning? Like, what would be 3 pieces of advice if you knew you were going to build the same exact thing? And you can already see it coming. What would the 3 things be that you'd be like, look, you're going to need to do this from the beginning?
I think one would be the business coach. Like, the business coach helps not only with thinking about how to hire and how to prioritize, and even just, like the things I've learned around frameworks and team leading, and, how to equip other team leaders with things so their teams are more efficient. Even just the simple change of going from goals and responsibilities to results. Nobody has goals in our company. Everybody has results. It's not things they aspire to do. It's things they have to cross off. So kind of like all these little tricks, plus the fact that I can go to him and say, and this guy, by the way, his name is Kevin Cape. He's an amazing guy. I can go to him and say, oh, there's an argument. This is the problem. These are the people arguing. I don't really have a dog in this fight. And also, I don't really know who's right or how to go about this, or how do I do this in a way that, doesn't disrupt company culture, or, I have this employee, they're doing this. Is this grounds for termination? Just somebody kind of bounce things off of, who's already had 40 years of experience operating at a C level. So that's one that I think everybody who really wants to build something great should do, because it's like if you're taking the SAT, it's like going to the SAT prep. It's like having a tutor. That's basically what it is. You're paying for a tutor for business. The second one would probably be hire help for the things that you're bad at, because the things that you're bad at, you're not motivated to do because you're not good at them. And as a result, they keep falling in the priority list. I hired a chief of staff recently, probably a few months ago, completely changed my life. And, the role description for that was, I need somebody who can do the things I need to do that don't require my active thinking. And that person has completely changed the way that my time is scheduled, the calls that I'm on, the things that I do with my time, the things I focus on, which has been really good. And I wish I did that, a year or 2 earlier. And then I think for the third one, I would say, this responsibilities to results change happened probably like 2 or maybe a year ago. It should have happened like at the very beginning. I think it's a completely, it's a great framework for making sure that you can hold yourself accountable. It's a great framework for other team leaders or directors in your company to be able to, you feel confident that, if your results are getting done, somebody else below them has results to get done. It's a very transparent way to keep people accountable. When it comes time for a promotion, there's no question about, how much do you like the role, or how do you feel you did? It's just like, cool, what was crossed off and what was not crossed off. It's very binary, which I love. And it also, because it's so binary, it makes it very easy for people to see what is their potential at a company, what is the company doing for them, what are they doing for the company. And it just makes things very easy to see. Whereas, with responsibilities or goals or kind of just like owning a swim lane, it's very ambiguous and, not clearly defined.
That is so good, because I can't tell you the amount of days that I would struggle with employees in the past where it's like, it takes away from you having to be the bad guy and having to show so much and explain so much. It's literally just all there for you. Is there a certain way that you track results? Is there something that you use?
I think right now we just mainly use Notion. So everybody's got quarterly and annual results. And so that, I have my results filter down into, let's say it's like, I have to do $100,000 in revenue for something. Yep. That result filters down to the 5 people who report into me. And it's like, okay, what does their contribution need to be for me to hit my goal? And their teams do the same thing. So let's say, Lori, you're the director of design. What do your 5 designers need to do to fulfill your results? And that will create their own individual results. And so it's like everybody's results ladder up. And, it makes team touch bases very quick. You don't go through random things. You just go through the results. It makes check-ins very quick. You just go through the results. It makes performance reviews very quick. You just go through the results, talk about what was done, why something isn't done. Is something on time? Is it not on time? And it also just helps you diagnose, okay, well, if we didn't get this done, then that means that we are lacking resources in some place, or we're lacking process in some place, or we're lacking urgency in some place. You can very quickly diagnose what's not being done and figure out why.
That is so good. I was just on another podcast yesterday with Robert Cialdini. God, I said his name wrong, but he's the guy who wrote the Influence book, which is so good. And he was talking about how in these meetings, like just having each person go around and give a verbal yes, like asking them that question and getting a verbal yes of, can you get this result? Are you able to get this result by then? He said it raised it by it was crazy the percentage that it raised it by. So I'm going to take what you just taught, mixed with that, and then hopefully we're going to be golden. Okay, I love that. That was so much gold. Where would you say, if somebody is just starting out and they're wanting to launch a brand, they've got a great idea around it, where would that person start?
Yeah, a couple places. I mean, I think one is, I think a lot of people need to properly check what they're doing, in the sense that, more in like a checks and balances way. Really think about, is what you're putting out there needed by the market, wanted by the market? There's so many founders I've seen where I just think, man, if they only had a real homie around them, they would have told them this is not an idea worth spending 2 years on and raising $1 million. Or this happens a lot in beverage. Like sometimes you try one of these new fancy drinks and you're just like, how did somebody not tell the founder that this tastes so bad?
I think that all of the time.
Yeah. And it's mind blowing, and it only hurts everybody involved. The investors get hurt. The founder gets hurt. The team that gets hired on is going to get laid off. There's so many people that get affected in there. So I think it's really important to make sure that what you're doing is something that's truly needed by the market, wanted by the market. And there's ways to test that. You can do anything from just looking at trend reports or statistics reports, looking at public company earning equivalent. So if you're starting a shoe company, go look at public earnings documents from shoe companies. If you're starting a cleaning company, go look at the earnings documents from Procter & Gamble or Unilever. So I think that's like one area of research you can do. I think also it's very easy now to, jump on TikTok, create an account for this brand, and just start talking and see if there's a response in the market. That's probably the easiest, freest, cheapest, most accessible way to validate if something is going to work. The next level would be, okay, this is what I would do at least. I would create a fake brand for what I'm trying to sell. So if I'm trying to sell a scalp serum, I'll create a fake brand for it, put a mock-up of it up on a landing page, which is basically a single page website. You explain the benefits of the thing, what it does, why it's different, how it compares to others on the market, how many uses you get out of it, before and afters, maybe almost as if you're selling it on a full website, but you're basically scrapping this together. And then you can drive some traffic there. So again, it could either be from content you're creating organically, or you can go and spend some dollars on Facebook or any of these ad platforms, drive some traffic, and just validate that, okay, I'm driving people here. What are they doing? Are they giving me their email? Are they placing a pre-order? Are they buying a $1 deposit for when it comes out? Whatever goal you have for that traffic, you want to try to judge how much does the market really want what you're putting out there? And that's just another great indicator to save you, right? You might spend, let's say if you spent all these dollars on paid advertising and a good designer and a good copywriter, all this all in might cost on the high end 10 grand. But that 10 grand is way better to spend than, 2 years of time, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe mortgaging your house. Like there's so many things that entrepreneurs and founders will do to continue their business without first validating it. And so I think validation is the biggest piece that a lot of people overlook. And especially because entrepreneurship is very glamorized and it seems it can be easy, I set this product up, I run some ads and boom, I've got a business. And next thing you know, I'm in Target. But there's a ton of ups and downs. And if there's not validation, you're not going to have the motivation to continue to persevere when you're constantly walking uphill.
Okay. Hey y'all, if you didn't know, Earn Your Happy is now a part of the Growth Day Podcast Network. This is so exciting to me because I have been looking for a really good home for the show for, I can't even tell you, years, literally. And now I've finally been able to come together and collaborate with other people who have incredible shows, and I want to share them with you. One of the shows is Motivation with Brendon Burchard. And you guys, if you don't know about the beginning of my career, I literally started with Brendon Burchard's work. It's how I launched one of my very first online courses and membership sites, was because he gives so much advice that you can integrate and implement immediately. And that's what you're going to get on the show. Not just motivation, but you're going to learn exactly how to get your stuff out in the world. And not just that, but Brendon runs in the most incredible group of humans who are really doing the thing out in the world that you want to be doing. So go check it out. Go subscribe to Motivation with Brendon Burchard. I promise you, this is going to be one of those shows that no matter when you tune in, you're going to get value. Like, it's not one of those that you're like, God, I listened for 30 minutes and I didn't get what I wanted. Like, from the beginning, you're going to get something that changes your life or changes your business. So go check it out. Motivation with Brendon Burchard. I know you're going to love it. I'm obsessed. So what would the next place be as far as setting up? Let's say they have that validation now. They've got a product that they think is going to be amazing. Let's talk to people who maybe don't have a really large budget, or maybe they're bootstrapping.
Yeah.
There's so many things to invest in. Oh my God, there's, design, there's copywriters, there's landing pages. What do you think are some of the most important things to get your ducks in a row in the beginning to invest in?
So personally, I like to think a lot about this as if I'm a consumer. And so personally, I think one of the biggest things you can do for yourself is investing in really good design. A lot of people tend to just pull kind of like off the shelf design, which definitely to some degree it can work. But the problem is with modern consumerism, trust is very much articulated through design and through cleanliness and minimalism. So I think for me, like if trust is 80% of getting a sale, you can get 40% of the way there just by being a new brand with good design. The second thing I think is you want to generate social proof. So, it doesn't mean that you have to sell 1,000 units before you can start collecting reviews. If I'm launching a product, I'll just ship you some and say, hey, Lori, do you mind writing me a review? I'd love to send you something in exchange. You write me a review, you get to try the product. I get a review out of it, helps us both out. And I think getting really scrappy with that is totally worth it. And then very quickly, you'll start to realize where kind of your strengths are as an entrepreneur. Some people are really good at conveying the vision and the mission of the company and talking about the efficacy of the product. There's a brand called Armra, which is a colostrum supplement. Their founder is exactly like this. She can get on a call or on video. And when she talks, you feel like, wow, this is $1 billion. Why am I not on this? And some people are like that. And those people might do very well with organic content. Others, they require the other side of it. So they say, I'll focus on product and I need somebody else to help me with marketing or distribution. Or they might just pay for distribution. There's a ton of people who out the gate can pay for ads. The thing, though, you have to keep in mind is, do you have the margin to do that? Do you have the luxury to afford being able to spend dollars to get people to your site? Or do you have to go, the first route, which is, how do I create stuff that's so interesting, it gets in front of people and makes them want to come to my site? Which personally, I do think if you're a new business, if you're bootstrapped, you almost have to do it the first way. You don't have the luxury to figure that out later. That's probably how I would go about it. I think a lot of it is really focused on making sure you have a good product, and then it's making sure that you're getting that product in front of people. And to do that, you have to have good design, you have to have good copywriting. I also think, leveraging something like ChatGPT, you can get very specific with what type of persona you want it to write for, or what type of audience you want it to write for. I can go in and say, actually, one thing I've been doing recently is I'll give it somebody's name who has an internet presence. So I'll say, I'm selling to Lori Harder. Write this product description as if it's something that Lori would be interested in.
So good. That is crazy. Okay. I love that. Okay. Audience acquisition. So maybe people are listening. They're like, okay, I totally have that dialed in. Like, I'm a person who can go out there and talk about the product, but how do we start getting outside? Let's go organically first. And then let's talk about ads. How do we start getting outside of our group, of our current audience?
So it's probably a couple ways. One is, if you go the organic route, you are basically trying to ride the algorithms. The algorithms are like waves in an ocean, and you want to try to surf those waves as best as you can without falling. So if you're trying to target a different type of audience or go after a different type of consumer, you really just have to change how you think about the content. So there's actually a branding exercise I love doing, which it's kind of like 73 questions with Vogue. So we would sit down and say, okay, let's take Light Pink, for example. If Light Pink she had a clear Friday night, what would she do? Would she go on a date? Would she go out with her friends and have a glass of wine and then come home early? Is she going out clubbing? Is she doing a yoga at 7 p.m. at Equinox, then coming home and sleeping because it was a long week? Saturday morning, what is she doing? Is she waking up hungover? Is she going to Soul Cycle? Is she going for a walk? What does Light Pink retweet on her Twitter account? What does she post on Instagram stories? What does she repost from other accounts on Instagram stories? What type of stuff does she DM, or what does she comment on? Where does she get her news? What type of content is she interested in? And so doing this exercise helps you build different personas that you want to go after, or figure out rather, how do you react to the persona you're trying to go after? And so in my mind, the way I think about it is, to go after different audiences, or on the organic side, you have to reorient the way that you think about the personas. You have to rethink, who are you going after, and what does that mean that you have to change in your content to try to do that. Now, if you're doing that the paid way, then you can just easily change the audiences you target on Facebook or wherever you're driving the ads. And then you also still have to change the creative. So at the end of the day, you still kind of have to do that exercise to really understand, how do I stay consistent from, the first touch point they see this brand to the very last. But I think doing these exercises helps a lot. And, organic is definitely harder, but I've also noticed that people who do it well organically, they have 100 times more success when they turn the paid ads on, because paid ads are essentially like taking an image and just stretching it out from the side, from the corner. The more you stretch it, the blurrier it gets. And so if you have really good organic content, it's like having a really high resolution image. It just stretches really well compared to when you put a terrible image in the middle and then try to pull it out.
Okay, that exercise, actually, I was just thinking about it. It really helps even come up with all of your social pillars, like how you're going to talk to people on
And not
social.
only that, but anybody who touches the brand can now see this and say, if there's a question of, okay, how do we respond to this Facebook comment, or how do we respond to this DM, or what does customer service do from a tone of voice standpoint? They can all see this document and very quickly assume how to go about it.
Mm. Okay, so I got to have a call with you on Mentor Pass, which was so cool.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you do that. That is like the coolest thing ever. And it was so valuable and helpful for us. You guys, you can, if you want to go get a little slice of Nik on just something dialed in for your business, maybe you have specific questions. That was a really, really cool way to be able to do it. And then I did it once and I'm like, damn it, how do I get like a season pass? So, but one of the things that I had asked you about on there was talking about, different kind of like these giveaways or collaborations. Like, when do we know? And sometimes you were talking about how sometimes when you give things away, it can attract the wrong type of audience. And I've actually spent a lot of money on one of the giveaways that did get me not a very good customer. Yeah. So when do we know when to like collab with certain people, and when do we know to do certain like free giveaways, or what does that look like?
Yeah, good question. So generally, the people who are coming for free stuff they're not good long-term customers. Mm-hmm. That said, they can be if it's done at the right time. So for example, if you are running a free giveaway to your existing customers, it's a different game. Mm-hmm. But if you're running a free giveaway as a way to attract people to the brand, you're now already bringing in people who are just looking for something free. They're not really interested in anything else. Free is like such a strong word, especially in American culture. Everybody loves free stuff, like even, if you think about like clubs at school, free pizza is how we got, so many people to different clubs, right? But the quality of those people is not that great. And so I think doing something like a giveaway is great to reward customers who have been with you for a while. It's almost more, I would say, less something of a giveaway, more of something like surprise and delight, or creating an opportunity for them there. But the free giveaway stuff, especially to new customers, people who aren't already in your brand ethos, it's just going to yield lower quality people. A lot of publishers like to do the free stuff, or big media accounts, they like to do it because they don't really have to sell anything. For them, their monetization comes from people getting to their site, and then boom, there's 6 ads there, and that's how they make money. So for them, it's actually more efficient to just get people there for free. But as a brand, it's not that efficient. And, what it does is, let's say you get 10,000 people, right? You send an email out to these 10,000 people, the open rate's going to be very low, might be 10%. Then out of that 10%, the people who do come to your site, they're going to hit your site. All of your advertising pixels are going to register this person as somebody who's interested in your brand when really they aren't. And so it's going to tell your ad platforms that, hey, this person who came, they're interested. Let's go find more people like this.
Oh, man.
And so it creates this downstream effect that just, especially if you're on a tight advertising budget, it's not in your favor to do this, because the quality, just everything gets affected.
Let's talk about ads for a minute, because I think there's a lot of people who they're dabbling in their own ads. I know that we have been through a lot of different agencies in my career. And in the beginning, I did not even know what to look for when I'm looking for someone who's good at ads. What are a couple things that we can ask, first of all, to kind of find out, is this a good person to work with? And then what makes a good ad? What makes a bad ad?
Okay, so if you think about what makes a good ad, in my opinion, it is just constantly answering a few questions. Of course, from a technical standpoint, you have a good hook, you have a good story, you have a good call to action. But in reality, this ad, it should appeal to somebody who knows everything about your category and the problem you're solving, as well as the brand that you are and the product you're pushing specifically. But it should also work for people who have no idea about those two things as well. So if they don't know your category or problem and they don't know your brand or product, it should still work. So I like to call it more like full funnel ad creative, rather than thinking about what's top of funnel and what's bottom of funnel. I like to approach it more as full funnel. And the questions you want to answer is, what is it? Why does it exist? How is it going to help me? How does it compare to other competitors on the market, and why? How soon can I get it? If you answer those 5 questions, basically customer acquisition is just answering those 5 questions over and over and over and over again. And then tactically, that means that you have a good hook, you have good social proof. That might be customer testimonials or a quote from Pop Sugar. You have good explanation of what comes in the box. Maybe you have a UGC video unboxing the product and you see somebody's reaction light up. Tactically, that's what it means. But basically, those 5 questions, any type of content you create, organic or ads or, collabs, like if you're constantly answering those 5 questions, it can all help work towards sales for your brand.
So good. Okay. So we have a lot of people who launch things and they launch the first time and the second time and they're discouraged. They're like, this did not get the traction or numbers I want. And they go back and they tweak the product or like an already good product, or they go back and try to perfect something else. But really, can you give us a general idea of how much you guys are tweaking things and how much you're testing things and dialing things in before they actually start hitting?
Yeah. So the beauty of a channel like Facebook or Instagram, which is probably the lowest friction channel to get up and running for ads, is very quickly you can see if something works or it doesn't work. It only takes maybe $100 to realize if something is going to get traction or it's not. And the few numbers you want to look at are the CPM of the ad, which is the cost per 1,000 impressions. You want to look at the click-through rate, which is the CTR, which is what percentage of people see the ad and end up clicking through to your website. And then, those are like two metrics you can look at to basically understand, okay, with $100, does it resonate with the platforms in the sense of the CPM will tell you how much Facebook likes your ad or believes it aligns with what Facebook wants to do in terms of giving valuable content to their users or, creating ads in a format that Facebook wants to push. So if you have a lower CPM, that means you're doing something that the platform likes. Then the click-through rate tells you how much the customer likes what you're doing. So if your click-through rate is, less than 0.5%, you're probably not doing something that the customers like. If your click-through rate's over 1%, you're doing something that customers do like. Then as you spend more, you can try to understand things like, cost per website visit, cost per add to cart, customer acquired, and all of those metrics will help. But the first two, the CPM and the CTR, will directionally help you understand, is this piece of creative even good? And with $100, you can put it up and you can test it and you can see. Candidly, there's not a lot of like pre-testing that happens on our end before something goes up. We make something that we think is going to do well. Everything is a hypothesis. We put it up and then we see if it actually does well. At this point, we've gotten pretty good to where we can know what will do well or what won't do well. And I'd say 95% of the time we're right. But there are a lot of times where I've seen founders who just struggle to put something up because they think it has to be perfect or it's not good enough to go up as an ad or be a representation of the brand. When in reality, you shouldn't look for compliments on ads. You should look for compliments being dollars in your pocket transacted on Shopify. So yeah, I think just like I think with organic content that you put out and test and see if something works, I think it's worth just putting it up. The best way to pre-qualify something is probably testing it on organic actually and seeing if it does well there. Something does well in organic, it'll crush on paid, but doesn't necessarily mean the other way around also applies. But yeah, definitely just put something up and see if it works. And then if it works, you add more spend and you keep running it. You test it with different audiences. You might test it with different landing pages. But if it doesn't work, then, no harm done. Maybe a couple thousand people saw it. You take it down. Those couple thousand people probably weren't even really engaged in looking at your ad. There's no such thing as doing harm to your brand in that sense. But then you can analyze it. You can say, okay, let's think about why this one worked and this one didn't. Okay, this one had a better hook. This had, I could see the liquids in the beginning, in the first 3 seconds. It was kind of interesting thing to look at, or it caught my attention. And then you can apply that to the next video that you put up. But I really do believe that if you're just starting on ads, you really have to figure out what works in the organic sense, especially because every platform now, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, they all give you the waves. You just have to go throw your surfboard out there and ride them. And if you can figure out how to ride these waves, you are now creating content that is contextually native to the platforms that they're in. And then when you run ads, all you're doing is putting more eyeballs on content that is already contextually native. It's now not just a billboard in somebody's feed or, just something that's irrelevant to their scrolling experience. It's something that's entertaining. It's something that's relevant to the platform. It's something that they're there to see. Most people are on social because they want to be entertained, not because they want to see your billboard. And so as a brand, if you want to play in that space, you have to figure out how to conform to what works in that platform.
In the beginning, you had mentioned positioning. When you were choosing between, we could work with shitty brands, we could go get 10 shitty brands, or we could go get 10 amazing, more premium brands.
Yeah.
And making that decision of, because I've made that decision now of I want to be a premium product. I've always with our stuff, we've always kind of positioned ourselves in that way. How did you need to show up? What did you need to make sure of in order to start positioning yourself in that way?
I have this concept of doing your homework. A lot of people don't like to do their homework, and I was definitely one of them. And I think a lot of it just comes down to doing your homework. If you're going to meet with somebody, you got to do your homework. You got to understand when you walk in the room, how are you immediately delivering value? What can you do that's helpful to them, even if they never become a client? Especially in B2B, which is this world I live in. I might talk to somebody today, but then they might end up being a client 8 months later. And if I didn't do my homework and didn't leave a good first impression or didn't bring them value, I'm not on their mind 8 months later when they actually need the service. So I think doing your homework is a really big one. I think being honest is another one. There's a lot of people who will just say whatever they need to say in order to win a deal, or say what they need to say in order to try to impress somebody. But it just doesn't work, especially as Gen Z is getting more and more into the work field. Gen Z is just as good as any FBI detective, and they'll find out what's real and what's not real. Mm-hmm. But the other thing too is as you do more and more, you get more successful, you get better at what you do. You become, let's say, top 10 or top 5, top 1% of your craft. The world gets very, very small and everybody knows everybody. And you just, you have to be known as somebody who puts good things out and says good things about others and does good things for others. And again, not in a transactional way, but just because that's just who you are as a person.
So good. Well, Nik, I'm going to make sure we have all of your sites below with a little description of what each one does. And also your podcast. We will link that as well, because that has been so valuable for me. Literally one of the most valuable things I've ever found on this journey of launching a direct to consumer product. So
thank you.
Please continue sharing all of your secrets on
Of course.
Because it's so helpful to people like us. And I'm just really grateful for you for showing up, because man, you have a busy life and you still show up and serve in such a big way. Truly, you're one of the people who has shown up on this podcast and you're I'm here, I'm committed, I'm excited. That is the most beautiful trait of a person, is enthusiasm around anyone that they come in contact with. And you have that. So thank you so much, you guys. One of the biggest things that we can do for Nik is to go subscribe to his podcast, go subscribe to his newsletter. I promise you're going to freaking love it. I love it. And let him know what your biggest takeaway was as well. So grateful for you again, Nik. And until next time, everyone, earn your happy. Bye-bye. Hey all, I'm so excited to share with you, Earn Your Happy is now part of Growth Day Podcast Network. A bunch of us are coming together to bring more growth to the world and support shows and brands that we truly believe in. And one of my friends is also on the network, and I'd love for you to go subscribe to his show. You guys, Trent Shelton has the most incredible podcast. It's called Straight Up with Trent Shelton, and it's going to remind you that you are built for this. I have heard Trent speak in person multiple times. I've listened to his podcast a ton. He's coming on the show, and I literally cannot wait, because this man just spits straight fire. It is truth that goes to your core and makes you take action right away. If you want one of those podcasts that when you're just out on a walk, you can't help but want to start running and run through a wall in your life, this is the show to go listen to. So you guys, make sure that you go subscribe to the show, Straight Up with Trent Shelton. You're going to love it. Hey, do you know what the big secret is this year? And it shouldn't be a secret, because this should be your biggest focus. It is building your community. I am always working on building and nurturing my community, and everyone is talking about the power of community. Without an online community, you just cannot grow organically or create a real movement, which is what I know that we're all after. And you can build trust or monetize your audience when you get community right. Not only does your audience grow faster, but so do your sales. But where's everybody going to be managing their communities these days? And a lot of online entrepreneurs and thought leaders are turning to Circle.so. Circle is an all-in-one community platform. It lets you host content and create discussions, live streams, group chats, and memberships all under your own brand. And what's so cool about Circle.so is that you don't even need a website or Facebook group. Instead, Circle lets you build your own community site where you can host content and manage your members. You can even create locked and unlocked content spaces, groups, and classes. How freaking cool is that? You can put your content behind a paywall too, and you can charge different amounts of money for different spaces on your community site. Circle.so is famously easy to use, and it has a free 14-day trial for you, so you can go check it out, see if you like it, see if you love all the options. Just go to Circle.so. Go check it out right now, you guys. Imagine being able to manage your community, start group chats and live classes, and accept payments all in one place. Kind of mind-blowing, since this is usually spread all over the place. You have to log into so many different things. If this is the year to capture, organize, and monetize your community, head over to Circle.so. You can get a free trial and start building your online community right now. Just go to Circle.so. You guys, you get the 14-day free trial. So just go and see if it's for you. It's going to streamline everything and make your life so much easier. It's so freaking cool.